Let's do a quick prayer. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. From ignorance to truth, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. So today, from our eternal calendar, Swami Vivekananda says, as always, very direct, you're spoiling your lives in vain. Either take up one idea, clear the deck, and to it dedicate the life, or be contented and practical. So too many times we are chasing all of these different ideas. He's saying either take up one idea and to that idea dedicate your life, or just be content and be practical then. Don't go be chasing 10 different things in life. Which fits in very nicely with our theme for the day, which is mind. So for those who are here for the first time, this is what we call Bhagavad Gita, the Song of Seven Dolls. And I'll quickly cover the seven dolls. So this is the doll of Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi Brahman. This is what I'm calling the being person. This is the God person within the being person. That's Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Within Krishna sits Maya. So that's the Maya person. All of the Arjuns in the world sit inside of Maya. So I call Arjun is the doing person. Karta. Within Arjun, the physical body sits another Arjun that is only seen by Arjun himself. We call it the experiencing person. Beyond the experiencing person is the soul person, Jivatman. And finally, within the soul person is pure Atman or consciousness, which is Chitta. This is Sat, this is Chitta. And then Advaita says they are both the same, so they come around in a circle of yoga or union that we call Ananda, Sat Chit Ananda. So we have covered a lot of ground today already. So today, ambitiously, we will cover the experiencing person. It's this chart over here. This is the experiencing person. The person sitting inside of me, Pranav, that only I can see. Thoughts, feelings, emotions. I'm a thinker, I'm a feeler, I'm a perceiver, I'm a knower. Those kind of things. And what this experiencing person is, it's marked by duality. Happy? Sad. All of us are experienced, no? Within those spectrums, good and bad, pleasure and pain, love and fear. So that is what we will cover today. Before I start, let me just do a quick recap. What are we doing here? So in Bhagavad Gita, the goal that we are seeking is ultimate freedom, moksha, which is realizing that we are Atman or we are Brahman. But then, to get to that, and what that really means, is what we discussed here in the karmic wheel. This. What we can also think of the play of the three bodies. The soul person, something comes out from the subconscious, this person experiences, and then it's played out by the doing person, and again the feedback loop to the experiencing person and to the subconscious. Yes? So this is what we are building moment to moment. Ourselves, personality, character, all of this is here. And sometimes this goes in this direction, let's say positive direction. Sometimes it goes in the opposite, say the not so good direction, pap and punya. This is what we are building moment to moment. And the goal of change, moksha or freedom, that could be applied to anything we do in life. It doesn't have to be just spirituality. Purpose in life, meaning in life, finding good relationships, maintaining good relationships. What are the good things to know and find out about in the world? All of that is within this only, isn't it? And then yesterday, we talked about the four paths. So now we moved into the world of, purely into the world of psychology, Arjun's world. Isn't it? And making any change in our lives, any transformation that we wish to make in ourselves is not easy. By default, this wheel is moving on its own. And the four yogas, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga, they're all four paths to make that change within us. The highest goal is ultimate moksha or freedom, but it's applicable to everything in our life. And Gita's word, I say, is counterintuitive. It will tell us almost always things that are at odds with what we know about from the popular culture. Yesterday, we looked at karma, action. So what is Karma Yoga, Krishna says? It is action that does not have a sense of doership. Act that is the right act to do duty, dharma. Giving based on our ability to the deserving person at the right time and the right place. Skill and discipline, the tapas, bringing the body, mind and speech in harmony to do that action. Fifth was cheshta, nischay, will. Especially when on this path of change, things become hard. Things will always become hard. So, the will we bring is what will serve us. Finally, tyaga, letting go. You've done your bit. Now, time is to let go of whatever happens. Happens, good, bad, success, failure. Don't have expectations. Don't be attached to the fruit. Why? Because this is a doing person. This is the person doing action with hands, legs, eyes, ears, and so on and so forth. But whatever action is done, ultimately the consequence goes here as bondage to the action, samskaras, whatever. So if we don't want to have bondage to whatever we did, Krishna's playbook is quite simple. Sattvic action, assuming all these gears are running with sattva. Anything rajasic, anything tamasic will create this bondage. Yes? So far so good? So that is what we did yesterday, Karma Yoga. And the beauty of Yoga Gita, I always feel, is that the fourfold approach of Gita, it doesn't say one path is better than the other. We all have different temperaments. For some people, action is something that they are more naturally drawn to. For some people, bhakti is where they naturally feel their heart goes to. Some people will be like, okay, I want to just sit in samadhi and just disconnect from the world. That's my way. Some people, fourth, would be very philosophical in nature. They want to know why. That is the path of jnana, knowledge. And Gita doesn't say one path is better than the other. We'll see it today. It's a harmony of the path. We start where we are comfortable with. And then just as we are building our skills, we add more paths to it. Yes? So in our printout, I have mapped each of these 4 yogas or these 4 paths. Karma is hand, Dhyana is head, Bhakti is heart, and then Jnana is the big question, who am I? So, Karma Yoga is for this person, doing person. Bhakti Yoga and Dhyana Yoga is for the experiencing person. Oops. And Jnana Yoga, let me just move them a little bit. Jnana Yoga is to cure the ignorance of the soul. To what end? For Gita it is moksha, freedom, consciousness. But I keep on reiterating, this is the highest goal. But to get to this highest goal, we have to also go through some other smaller goals such as finding purpose, fulfillment, happiness, harmony in relationships, financial security, emotional balance, love, belonging. All of that we have to find, no? We can't just go from here to here. And that's the fourfold path of yoga. So today, the subject of our discussion will be this person, the experiencing person. Where? Dhyana, mind and senses. And bhakti, love, fear. Now, in the interest of time, I will not spend a lot of time on this, but this is a big topic today. It's getting more and more clearer that there is a mental health epidemic around the world, especially through COVID. And with this rapid evolution in technology since the last, say, 20 years or so, social media and like this constant attention deficit that we seem to be running around, we seem to have lost a lot of this thing about not being able to stay steady and focused. Social media is full of people who are trying to put their bestest self, even if it is inauthentic, out there. Then now AI is also coming. I keep saying it's one of my favorite things to ponder about. As we live in the age of AI, it will become more and more existential for a lot of people to be able to distinguish between the machines and their innate humanity. Separate topic on which I can go on and on again about, but some other time. So let's talk about the mind. So I'll have something special today to share. But before we go to the mind, let us understand this Prakriti chart. Okay, it's here. We should have put it here today, but it's okay. Let's focus our attention here if that's okay. So the sensory system and the mind system is this middle circle here. Shall I put it over there, Sanju? Yeah, let's just put it over there. Just come closer a little bit because it might be a little harder to see this one. But it's important to get this one down, then our dhyana session will become very easy. Dhyana means mind, and mind is not one thing. Mind in Vedanta and Upanishad means a few different. It's made up of the five senses and the manas, which is thoughts. 2. Third, it is made up of intellect. Fourth, memory. And fifth, ego. So, senses, and what we are showing here in this chart here are dualities. So we said this experiencing person has dualities. Sometimes my senses are in control, sometimes my senses are not in control. Right? So that's the duality. Here the potter is in control, so he's making good pot. Here he's not in control. His senses are not in control, he breaks the pot. Here, memory. We've shown it through time, like, just remembering something. Oh, I'm late or I'm not late, I forgot. So this is memory. I remember or I forgot. Second component of mind. Third is intellect. What are two extremes of intellect? Right and wrong. Ability to distinguish between right and wrong, which we are showing here with this boy who has an exam coming up. He's studying religiously, gets up on time. That is the right thing to do. He sleeps on his desk. That's not a good thing. He's not exercising his intellect. Fourth thing is this mind stuff, thoughts. Whether they're focused, one single flame, or they're flickering all over the place. Finally, ego doesn't have a duality. Ego is an interesting one. Ego showed up as doer in karma, action. I am the doer. And here, ego shows up as, in my thoughts, I am the thinker. In my senses, I perceive. Yes? In my feeling, I'm a lover. So ego travels throughout all the bodies. It's an interesting thing. So the background sort of idea that I am Pranav, let's say, always is there. There's no duality about that. Yes? The duality shows up in sense of doership or sense of thinking or whatever. Right? So, for our dhyana portion, these five things will come back to again and again. In the material I shared, there's a table in there, if you refer to it, it's this one. The mind complex, I call it Antahkarana. Right? So that shows the duality and the practice for each of that, part of the mind system. So so we'll come to that right now, but there is this beautiful verse that is one of my favorite ones that will unlock the whole of the dhyana concept from some Kathopanishad. I will circulate this around. Just 2 copies here, so just share. and pass it around. And I'll read from Kathopanishad. It is said that Kathopanishad was Swami Vivekananda's favorite Upanishad. So it's a chariot metaphor. And this chariot metaphor will connect all these 5 things we talked about right now in the mind complex. So Kathopanishad from 1.3.3 to 1.3.11. And the verses will beautifully describe the relationship between these 4 bodies and also the mind complex. So I will read it. So imagine this image I circulated around with a charioteer, a chariot, horses, reins. The horses are going on a path to a destination somewhere. And there's a passenger sitting in the back. Yes? So this is the analogy. In olden days, they didn't have cars and all, no. So they had to think about chariots and analogies in those terms, right? So with that in understanding, let's read this. Know the soul as the master of the chariot. This soul, the master of the chariot. The body as the chariot itself. This. The intellect as the charioteer, the one in the driving position. And the mind as the reins. The charioteer is holding reins. The senses are the horses. The sense objects, what their senses are going out in the world, they are the roads. The soul that is united with the body and the mind is called the experiencer. One who lacks discernment or intellect and whose mind is controlled, his senses behave like horses that are untrained. So remember, the chariot is going to a destination here. Yes? So, you sit in a chariot and you're going somewhere. It's describing the path now. The path that the chariot is taking. So, one who lacks the intellect and whose mind is uncontrolled has senses that behave like untrained horses. Senses, as we said in this example, are the horses. They behave like untrained horses. But who has the right intellect and a controlled mind, their senses behave like a well-trained horse. Actually, on this page, I have the whole metaphor sketched out. And I probably should have started from here. But let's go. One who lacks in the discernment is unmindful, ever impure, does not reach the goal, and is born again and again. But one who has discernment, mindfulness, and purity reaches that goal from which there is no return. That's moksha. One who has the intellect as a charioteer and a well-controlled mind as reins reaches the end of the journey, the supreme home of Vishnu. And then Kathopanishad says, it now lays out the hierarchy here. He says, beyond the senses are the sense objects. Beyond the senses is the mind. Beyond the mind is the intellect. And beyond the intellect is the great soul. And he says, beyond the great soul is the Purusha. So he says, the gross body, sense objects are in Maya. Beyond the sense objects, now we are going more subtler and subtler. From physical to subtle to unmanifest. So, it says these are the sense objects through which we see the world. Who sees the world? Body, eyes, ears, nose. This is also physical. So this is also sense object in that sense. Beyond the sense objects, he says, it's the senses. It's here. Now we are getting into the mind complex. Beyond the senses is the mind itself, thoughts. Beyond the mind, he says, is the intellect. Beyond the intellect is the soul. And then he says, beyond the soul is the Purusha, consciousness, Atman. So, in that sense, we've laid down the whole hierarchy of how our system works. So, in the write-up I've shared, this analogy is fully sketched out here, along with which particular doll it refers to. And I also mentioned that hierarchy is from doll 3 all the way to doll 7. Kathopanishad says this is the destination, this is the goal. Senses are the horses, the reins are the mind, the charioteer is the intellect, the soul is sitting in the back as a passenger, the chariot is the body. The road are the sense objects. We are traveling on that road, that is our life and our seeking, and the destination is moksha. If the senses are controlled, the reins are controlled, the horses will be controlled. If the charioteer, the intellect, is in control of the reins, which is the mind, the reins control the senses, the horses, the whole chariot structure will go in the direction in which it is intended to go. But if the horses are running around wild, senses are running around wild, the mind will be all over the place. What will the charioteer do? So a skilled charioteer is needed. A skilled intellect is needed. But there is a problem. What is the problem? If it is that simple and if we understand the hierarchy, why are we not able to control the chariot of our own body and us? Ultimately, if we are goal-seeking people, moksha and all the higher purposes in life, higher goals in life, the intellect has to be focused. Why? We'll see it very soon. We are going from something that is more physical to something that becomes more and more unseen. Yes? Our goals work at the level of intellect. I should be getting up at 5 o'clock to do yoga. But before intellect can get solidified, the mind has to agree to that, no? See, the body, no? It responds to habits. Discipline. The senses, they respond to what's pleasant. There is this beautiful idea in Kathopanishad, Shreyas and Preyas. Shreyas is what's good for me. Getting up at 5 is good for me. Preyas is what is pleasant. I want to stay up till 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock watching Netflix. That's pleasant. So if we go with prayers, Shreyas will not happen. So the first step in this controlling of this charioteer is knowing the difference between what is pleasant and what is good for me. That's the first thing that we have to do. And once senses are controlled, only then the mind will be controlled, no? Once mind is controlled, then intellect can have its voice. So this is where the whole trap is. We want to do good things, but we are not able to do them. We want to make good habits, but we are not able to. That is why change is so hard. So let's quickly go through this mind complex. I'm going a little faster here and I'll open up the space for Q&A very soon. So far so good? Senses then. Let's talk about senses first within the mind complex. Senses, there are 5 senses. Seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, smelling. These are like what I said, are antennas into the world. They're gathering data all the time. The mind is then processing. And this data that we gather is what gives us experience. And Krishna says, this experience is of transient nature, temporary. He says, 2.14, now I'm going to be reading from the notes I gave. The contact of senses with sense object produces experiences, cold and hot, pleasure and pain, dualities. The contact of senses with objects produces duality, good and bad, pleasure and pain. Then he says, these experiences come and go. They don't have a staying power. Our thoughts change. What we want change. He says, these experiences are transient, so tolerate them. Arjun. So in this, he has told us, there's no shortcut here. You have to tolerate what is coming in, good or bad. Sit with it. Because eventually it will pass. But then Arjun says, hold on, Krishna. He says the sense is torment. They're going everywhere. What we want from life. My Swami says that we go around the world with a begging bowl. Give me this, give me that. Chasing like food. Chasing these, what do you call, like so much time is spent on what's called doom scrolling on the social media. All because we're not focused, like, okay, we don't pay attention to what that is doing to us. So Arjun says, but Krishna says, Arjun, a seeker is certainly a person of discernment. If we are walking this path of Gita, that means that we already are a lot more intentional than most people. So we already have discernment, but he says the senses torment is the word he uses. Hijacking the mind as if by force. And what do senses chase? They're chasing pleasure. They're chasing pleasure and they're avoiding pain. This is another hard language Krishna uses. He says, born of the sense contacts, these pleasures are as if born of misery, womb of misery, he says. They have these pleasures, why they're born of womb of misery? Because they have a beginning and an end. The wise do not delight in them, Arjun. Means, be chill. Don't seek pleasure, don't avoid pain. Both are transient, they will pass. They both have beginning and an end. Tolerate them. And then he gives the practice. How do we control our senses? Very simple practice, but simple, as I say, is not easy. He says, restrain your senses. There's a beautiful metaphor used in chapter 2, 2.58. He says, just as a tortoise, I don't know if you've noticed it, when you poke a tortoise, it goes inside its shell. He says, just as a tortoise withdraws its limbs from all sides, so when one withdraws their senses from sense objects, their wisdom is firmly established. So just like a tortoise withdraws its limbs, you also withdraw your senses. Again, counter-intuitive advice from Bhagavad Gita. We're asked to we are told to chase things in the world. He's not saying don't chase the things in the world. Chase the things in the world, but with a certain intentionality. Don't go to the world with a begging bowl. Restrain yourself a little bit. Then he says, restrain all of the senses, for whose senses are under control, their wisdom is established firmly. And then within the framework of Guna, right, he says, see, pleasure is what we are seeking with our senses. Then he says there are three kinds of pleasures, sattva, rajas and tamas. In this picture we see here, so this is the experiencing person, the red one. So one half is Dhyana, the other half is Bhakti. So in the gear of Dhyana, we have pleasure, mind and intellect, discernment by Guna. So now pleasure again is of three kinds, sattva, rajas and tamas. We'll look at it now. 3 verses. He says, that which feels like poison at first, but the result is like nectar in the end, such a pleasure is sattvic. Means get up at 5, it's painful. Feels like hard at first. But the result is nectar in the end. Then he says, born of the union of the objects with senses, what it just means? We're chasing things in the world. Senses and sense objects chasing things in the world. The pleasure that feels like nectar at the beginning. Like, open up your phone and just start doom scrolling. It feels very good in the beginning, but then he says the result is poison in the end. That pleasure is rajasic. Then there's a third kind of pleasure. He says the pleasure born of sleep, laziness and negligence that stupefies one mind. Again, no holding back on language here. That stupefies the mind, he says. It stupefies the mind at the beginning and also at the end. That pleasure is tamasic. So Shreyas one is the first one. Sattvic pleasure. That's good. Prayas is the Rajasic one. What feels good. Okay. I'll pause here for a second. Anything to share real quick? Because we are short on time right now. I'm running through material right now. But anything that comes out? Makes sense?
Yeah, I noticed that you did not use the word wisdom and ego on this chart.
Ma'am, this chart I printed from the internet.
Okay.
So this is the best I could find.
And
So
usually they have five horses to denote the five senses.
yes. So we are going to be making this like this artwork we have. We are going to make an artwork for this example also. But in the file I shared, this analogy is actually broken down.
The other thing that you said was experiences are temporary, but they leave a memory, right? I mean, they imprint your mind, and so that has an effect on us as to how we operate or not.
Yes, this is this soul person, where the experiences leave an imprint. The chart of 4 gears over there, the one on top is the soul person, where the imprint is left. And the soul person is always in contact with the experiencing person on both sides, if you see. So the cycle keeps on going. Doing, experiencing, imprinting, experiencing, doing.
So which path falls for this tamasic behavior? Like Prayas is there for sattvic and rajasic, but tamasic, what is the path?
For the tamasic person, this karmic wheel moves in the opposite direction a lot faster. So
Any term for that? Just like Shreyas or Prayas?
I am not aware of it. But usually, if we think about it, we are not actually intentionally chasing something that is tamasic. We are intentionally chasing either something that is good or something that is pleasant.
So in other words, being tamasic is our natural uh, behavior, our tendencies. So we have to work towards the sattvic by energizing the rajasic movement.
See, I don't believe we are in a fixed state all the time. We kind of go between tamas, rajas, and sattva states. And based on our personality, on our prakriti, we tend to have one gun more predominant than the other. And within that, there's a hierarchy clearly tamasic. If you're in tamas, first move to rajas, and from rajas, move to sattva. We cannot directly go from tamas to sattva.
Like Newton's laws of motion, the body continues to be in the state of like stationary until some force is put on that.
Yes. Okay, so let's move on to the mind now. Thoughts. In this duality, we are showing it with a lamp or diya. duality, which is the blue one, focus and flickering mind. So we just did senses now we're doing mind. And these are very popular verses. The next ones I will say. Krishna says, is your mind friend or a foe? Mind is a friend or an enemy. Thoughts that keep coming again and again. He says, lift yourself by your mind do not lower yourself. What are the thoughts that come to us? Are they lifting us up or they're taking us down? He says, for the mind is one's friend and the mind is one's enemy. The mind is the friend of one who has mastered it, but for the unsettled, the mind is the enemy, and like an enemy, their mind behaves. Direct language, no sugarcoating. And then he gives an example. So if we remember the hierarchy, sense objects, senses, once senses are in control, then we can think about the mind. After mind will come intellect. So senses, now we're doing mind. Mind, he says, 2.67, he says, the senses roam. The horses are running away around. And when the mind follows eagerly, their wisdom is hijacked. Not my language, his language. Just like the wind does to a boat on the water. Senses are running around, then the mind will get hijacked. But then opposite is when the senses are in control. He says about the mind, just as a lamp in a windless place does not flicker, so is a yogi in union with the Atman, with the mind mastered and with the yoga perfected. This. Yes? But then Arjun also has a question now. It's a dialogue happening, no? Arjun says, what? I cannot control my mind. It's like a wind. He says to Arjun says, Krishna is saying, no, this yoga, just be steady. He calls it yoga of evenness. Arjun says, this yoga of evenness that you taught Krishna, I don't think it is feasible. Because mind is always restless. This is one of my favorite verses, 6.34. He says, the mind is restless, Krishna, turbulent, strong and stubborn. I find it impossible to hold it steady, just as the wind is impossible to hold. What do I do? You're looking for shortcuts, no? For senses, he said, experience, he said, there's no shortcut, tolerate them. For senses, he says, no shortcut, restrain them. Mind also, he said, there's no shortcut. He says, Krishna says, without a doubt, Arjun, the mind is hard to hold, steady and is restless. I understand. I understand your problem. But he says, but by practice and dispassion, you will steady it. He says, for the unsteady mind, yoga is impossible. This is my opinion. But it is possible to steady the mind by sincerity and the right practices. No shortcut, sincerity and right practices. Again, Gita is counterintuitive. People will sell you courses. People will say, come to this retreat, 5-day retreat. You'll be new person after that. Wait till the 8th day. So this is not a short haul flight. I heard it somewhere. It's a long haul flight. Moksha. Or any big goal in life. Any big goal in life. Intellect wants to do it, but first senses and the mind have to be controlled. So, he says, it's possible, Krishna says, to steady the mind by sincerity and the right practices. And what is the right practice? Meditation. And there is a sequence of verses which I have not included here, where he talks about how you should create your meditation space. And then he talks about how you should meditate. How should we meditate? He says, firstly, renounce the desires fully and completely that arise from selfishness. You sit down, close your eyes, and thoughts come. Observe those thoughts. Whatever are the selfish ones, gradually let them go. He says, by the effort of the mind, restrain this family of senses from all sides. Once thoughts calm down a little bit, calm down the senses. Then he says, slowly, slowly the mind then quietens and the intellect gets firm. Then he says, offer the mind to the Atman and do not think of anything. It's a practice. It doesn't happen just, I'm reading the verses and suddenly it won't happen. Right? But first drop the desires. Second, restrain the senses. Gradually the thoughts will be under control. Hopefully over time, gradually more and more stillness will come. No shortcuts. And he says, when and when the mind wanders, is restless and is unsteady, then and then by discipline bring it back to the Atman. Leon, I sent a printout on the WhatsApp today. So, that was the mind, the reins in our chariot example. So we've done the horses, senses, and then we are now doing the reins, which are the mind. Good? Just space for one question before we move on. Nothing? Great. Now we come to the third part of the mind complex. We've done two, senses and mind, intellect. This guy, getting up on time, doing his, what is the right thing to do? Sleeping at the desk. Right versus wrong. That's a duality. So, this is basically sticking to our goal. Once mind and senses are in control, then we can really engage the intellect. Otherwise, theory. Intellect, he says, one of my favorite verses again. There's this term used in Gita, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, chapter 2. What is that? Let's see. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi is the resolute intellect. Intellect that is focused on the goal. Like an archer is focused on what target to hit. He says the resolute intellect is uniquely focused, Arjun. Just focused at one point. But many branched and infinitely directed is the intellect of the irresolute. Means what? People who have their eye on the goal, they'll just, intellect will automatically be focused on it, like Arjun's eye was on that fish, that story that goes in Mahabharata. But most of us, our intellect is directed at 10 things in the world. The goal will be 10 times harder, if not more. He talks about the people whose intellect is infinitely directed. He calls them those people of the world who delight in debates on Vedas and just do transactional give and take. Which is, he says, with a mind full of desires that craves for heavens, they pray for rebirth as the fruit of karma and perform many special rituals to attain fame and pleasure. Fame and pleasure is things in the world, not bad by themselves. He keeps telling Arjun, win this war, you'll get fame and you'll get pleasure. But focus on the war right now. And for these people who are just focused in their many multiple ways on just getting material things in the world, fame and pleasure, he says, their intellect is mesmerized by an addiction to fame and pleasure. Not my words, his words. I keep out saying that, I keep saying that. It's not my language, it's his language. He says their intellect is mesmerized by an addiction to fame and pleasure. How can they know what an unwavering intellect is? But he says, when you are firmly established in a still and unwavering intellect, your eyes are on the goal, that you are not seduced by these materialistic world around us, then you will be established in yoga. Then you will go, the horses will run along the path. Goal is what? So the charioteer is now in control of reins, which is the mind, and reins are controlling the horses, which are the senses. The goal being what? The passenger at the back, Atman, Jiva Atman, or the soul, it needs to the destination of moksha. Along the road of Maya, the sense objects. Finally, to round up our guna framework, intellect is discernment here. We did pleasure by gunas. Now we'll do intellect by gunas, the 3 verses. What is Rajasic intellect? What is Sattvic intellect? What is Tamasic intellect? Krishna says, what should be done from what should not be done? Action from inaction. So what should be done? Right thing. What should not be done? Wrong thing. An intellect that can discern between these two is Sattvic. But an intellect that has an incorrect understanding of what is right and wrong, sometimes we get confused, no? It's not normal, natural. That is Rajasic intellect. And takes time to develop that intellect. We'll all make mistakes. But then Tamasic intellect, he says intellect that thinks that vice is virtue, that wrong is good. That intellect is Tamasic. So, one that has a clear understanding of right and wrong is Sattvic intellect. One that can get confused oftentimes happens. It's not a simple world we live in. That's a Rajasic intellect. One intellect but the intellect that thinks that the wrong things are the right things, cheating, this, that, right? That is the Tamasic intellect. space for a question before we move on.
The feelings and emotions that we feel, they come under the senses part, right?
Well, ultimately, mind is the one that is mediating everything, thoughts and feelings also, but feelings will come to, we'll cover that under Bhakti. Emotions. Feeling is emotion only, no? But that's part of experiencing person only, here only. But ultimately, mind, why don't you have heart here? Because mind is the one that is channelizing even the emotions. Yeah, thoughts or whatever, there's only one CPU in our brain, no? Experience.
So when I took therapy, they used to tell me that the feelings, whatever I'm feeling, or the emotions, I shouldn't just shoo them off. I shouldn't just ignore them. I should feel them entirely. But here you're telling that the senses have to be more like you don't make sense. I shouldn't be bothered about the senses or the feelings that I'm getting. Right. So I feel
No, that's so. What did Krishna say? Tolerate them, sit with them.
oh, not at ease. Don't run away or abandon them. Yeah. That makes sense.
See, when we are not tolerating, we are pushing them away.
Yeah. When we sit with them, they just go away. Right.
The question about the intellect and for the mind, there was a meditation as a practice to clear the mind. What is the practice for the intellect to clear the intellect?
So I have mentioned that here in this table, I think. This one here, I should have put the page number, but right before the chariot metaphor. Intellect is the practice is simply that how focused are we on the goal. So for senses, the practice was restraint. For mind, it was meditation. For intellect, the focus is the goal you have. And the higher your purpose in life, the more we'll be able to engage our intellect.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the question is that stays is because if the focus is wrong, how to bring the focus. We have a strong focus, but was feeling like where it should go, where the chariot should drive is wrong. How to, the some say,
That is the intellect that needs to be able to distinguish between right and wrong.
Since Swadharma will come, according to your dharma, I will know what is right or wrong.
Right, that's a good point. Move on. Next we come to memory. Memory, there's not a lot that Krishna talks about in terms of, spiritual seeking, but I like this verse a lot that I pulled out from chapter 10. He says, in chapter 10, he's talking about all his glories, very humbly. We'll cover that when we come to the God part, session 9. He says, for the memory, he says, I am the fame, beauty, and fine speech of women. The memory, the discrimination, and the firmness and the tolerance. So he compares all these as attributes of women that he feels are him. So all the ladies here, some good ones here. For men, he just uses one words. I remember for men, he just says, I am the king among men or something like he says, like not very whatever, right? Just one word, I forget what exactly it was. But for women, he uses, I am the fame, the beauty, and the fine speech, the memory, the discernment, the firmness, and the tolerance. Some high adjectives given to women here. So now we come to the ego. So we've done 4 now: senses, mind, intellect, and memory. Now we come to ego. The whole game is actually making our ego smaller and smaller. That is the whole game. If you were to ask me one word, how do you go to the moksha? Or any goal, higher purpose goal, not like random goals like I want to finish, I don't know, but ego, that constant background awareness, I am. And in this image that we have here, it's a beautiful one actually. I would encourage you to come closely and look at it after the session. Everything has duality except ego, the red one. And the Upanishadic thought about ego is face reflected in the mirror. We touched upon it in I think session 2. We cannot see our own face. Yes? Selfie example, who remembers? But this consciousness, if we are this consciousness, that needs a mirror to reflect back. That is ego. So this in this example is a face looking into a mirror reflected back. So it's the doer, thinker, feeler, knower, perceiver, all of that is manifestation of ego in all these different bodies. It's only one ego. So now we'll just quickly do 2 stories from the mind, chapter of Bhagavad Gita. One is what I call the cycle of ruin, Barbadi ka chakra. Tabahi ka chakra. And he'll connect all of these different things that we just talked about. He will say a man, surprisingly, he just talks about man, not women. No, because we already know he thinks highly of women. Men are the ones who are like, a man contemplates on objects, which means experience seeking. From that, an attachment develops. We get drawn to the experience. From that attachment, a desire is manifested, want. From the desire, anger is born if that want is not fulfilled. From that anger, he says, delusion arises. We get mesmerized. From that delusion, the memory fails. When the memory fails, the intellect perishes. When the intellect perishes, he is ruined. Sense objects, think about them for a long time, you want experiences. A desire is attachment comes in, a desire comes in, from desire anger comes in. From that anger, delusion comes, then memory fails, and then intellect fails, and then we are done. Typically, this is how anger works. When desires are not fulfilled, anger is usually can be the outcome. And repeated bouts of that is cycle of ruin. Then next story is about the mind and the moksha, consciousness. Next sort of few verses I'll just read about the mind complex and moksha. He says, when a mind is mastered, is steady in Atman, free from craving of all desires, then it is said to be in consciousness. The yogi in consciousness sees the Atman in all beings and all beings in Atman they see alike everywhere, which is samadhi. सबको एक जैसा दिखेगा, सब एक जैसा दिखेगा. No difference. All beings in Atman and Atman in all beings. That cycle, that the circle we talk about. Asi, Asmi, bliss, Ananda. Then he says, who see themselves in everyone, be in happiness or in sorrow, I see them as the highest yogi. I'll end the Dhyana chapter with this quick two verses from Sthit Pragya. There's a specific term used for a person who's in consciousness, Sthit Pragya. Very famous were two verses. Krishna says, Arjun says, what is the mark of one with steady wisdom when they are in consciousness, Krishna? The one of steady wisdom, how do they talk, how do they sit, how do they walk? Krishna says, Arjun, when all the selfish desires that run the mind are discarded fully, merged content within the Atman, then one is said to be of steady wisdom. Desires come back to it. And we talked about desires a couple of sessions back, which is not saying that desires are wrong in themselves, but they have to be aligned with dharma. So that is the part of Dhyana Yoga, mind and meditation, restraining the senses, controlling the mind, developing an intellect, and then the horses will run nicely to the goal. What time is it now? 8. We started a little late. And I wanted to get to Bhakti also. I'm done with Dhyana right now, but in the interest of finishing things on time, like 10 sessions, I wanted to do Bhakti also today. Do we have some time? Yes? Everyone? Everyone okay? Thank you. So I'll just pause here for a couple of questions before I move to Bhakti. Good. We've done almost, how many verses today? A lot. And we just quickly ran. But this is the chart to remember. Duality.
Please explain the ego and the reflection part. I didn't understand that one phrase was just above my head.
Hold that question then. After the session is done, that'll take me some time to explain. Okay, now let's come to Bhakti. Bhakti is a good one. Because there's nothing to be done there. Mind can intellectualize. So this is the journey for the experiencing person from head to heart. Mind to Bhakti. For a lot of people, it can be a hard journey. I mean, I'll confess to that. Over time, it develops. Like I said, no, somebody has a dominant temperament, they start there and then they bring other things into focus. But so some people, bhakti is so natural. I envy them actually. Because, that's my opinion, all this self-inquiry, philosophy, path of philosophy and mind and all, they're all good. But bhakti is the secret sauce that makes this path easy. That thing will come actually when we talk about which is better path, bhakti or philosophy.
So, all the evolved, souls in India, mostly they have the path of bhakti, right? Ramana Maharishi was mostly like Dhyan and Bhakti, right? I mean, it was Dhyan, right? Who am I? It started from there. So it already feels like Bhakti is the path. Am I right in this? Because I notice most of it is like examples of Bhakti to get to moksha.
Hold your question very soon we'll answer that. So 2 questions that I've put on hold right now.
What she said, I think I understand. Shabri. Shabri was the biggest example for we can discuss later.
No, it'll come. Both of like yours is an extra credit question. Hers will come anyways. So bhakti, part of experienced person, hands, head, now heart. So bhakti is, we are showing here on this experiencing doll as love and fear. Both sides. Again, we are in the world of duality. Like for mind, we had duality, for heart also. It goes on extreme space of love and fear. Love on one side, fear on the other side. All the other emotions are just blending between these. There's this thing, no, where like when there is no fear or hate, there is only fearlessness and love. And it has a evolutionary basis. Evolution. We evolved from reptiles, snakes and birds and the lizards and all. They did not work in a framework of love and fear. They were just purely in the framework of survival. The reptilian brain, 1 second, Sanju. The reptilian brain, if you think about it, they would even eat their own eggs. But then we evolved from reptiles to mammals. We moved from this idea of survival to this idea of love. Mammals, they bring their own kids. So evolution has programmed us to go to have that love. There's a wonderful book that if you ever get hold of, read it. It's called A General Theory of Love. And that's where I picked up this idea from. So the idea of love and fear, where that come from, is evolutionary driven. Evolutionary driven. And this whole idea of emotions, Gita actually dives very deep into it. There are only 2 emotions that are spoken about in Gita. If we, look at it in a very deep way, some of the emotions that Krishna talks about in Gita, that Arjuna and Krishna discuss in Gita, are belonging, connection, wonder, reverence, curiosity, anxiety, depression, abandonment, which is opposite of dharma, hate, courage, competition and collaboration that we talked about a few days back. So we can pretty much line up all of these emotions on this extreme spectrum of love and fear. On one side, we will have things like, belonging, connection, wonder, reverence, curiosity, love. Other side, we'll have these negative emotions, anxiety, depression, being lost, competition. So this thing that you're talking about, right, Shruti, like emotions come and all, right? They come all the time on this spectrum. Sanju, you had a question, no?
Yeah, so when you said we are evolved from animals and
Not animals, mammals. Oh, sorry, reptiles.
yeah, reptiles, so doesn't they have fear? Because survival is based on
Yes,
fear.
reptiles are always living in flight and fear mode.
Yeah.
So that thing that is what we have inherited from reptiles. That is our reptilian brain, they say, no? It's somewhere here, it's called, I forget the name here, that part of the brain that is constantly looking for survival.
So isn't deer, which is like deers, which is widely found in Karnataka in jungles, so they also have fear that some predator might and they're always in this attention mode. And whenever if I see animals go and graze and also drink water especially, they're very fearful. They don't actually really go and say, there's a lake, I'll drink aram se. So near the water they're extra cautious. So deer is an animal. So you're saying it has bhakti and
I don't know about deers, brother.
but many
I know. Survival is a basic need for any being. Right. So, but we are trying to contrast the opposites now here. Not necessarily take deer as an example, but evolutionary as humans, that we have access to human experience. I don't know how a deer really feels. Right. I know there's a basic need to be alive, but if we think about a human experience, that is a mix of love and fear. And evolutionary fear was the first thing that we got from reptiles, constantly be on the vigil. That's why nervous system is the one that's sort of like looking for that safety. And then we added the mammalian brain to it, which thinks more from here.
maybe by the time you move forward the question was out of context, but that was the question when I raised my hand.
No, it's not out of context. And there are many stories of love and fear Gita talks about. I'll list a few very quickly. The first fear is that everyone has is what? Of death. Just our own mortality and the mortality of people that we love. Fear of death, our own death, and the grief that comes from the death of someone else. Krishna is very stoic about it. Death is inevitable. Who is born will die, but who has died will be born again. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu. Chapter 2, very famous verse. So that's when he tells Arjun, don't worry, dude. You are the imperishable, undying, eternal Atman. This body will come and go. You don't die. So that fear of death, he just straight shoots it and says, "You're Atman, don't worry." Then the second story of fear is that we've talked about a few times is that Arjun is paralyzed by fear and he wants to run away. His whole body mind system shuts down. He says, I am besieged by fear. Karpanya dosho upahat chetasa. Karpanya dosho upahat chetasa. Then towards the end, Sanjay says in reverence, this is the love part now I'm coming to. He wonders what a beautiful story he's just heard. Not dialogue he's heard. With reverence, he says, I'm remembering this wonderful dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna. I feel blessed. This is the last 2 or 3 verses of Gita. Then on love, basically, Krishna talks about seeing the divine in the world. Chapter 10, Vibhuti Yoga. And then another whole chapter is, that we will do on session 9. So I'll skip that for today. God and Bhakti are related to each other. So some parts of God will do when we do the Vishwarupa and the cosmic God, the glories of God. Okay. So let's come to Bhakti now. God and Bhakti are related. First question is, why love God? And a lot of people will say, is God even real and all? Like, that's a separate conversation we can have on. But someone I know said very poetically once, I am God and I have a God. That's a good framework for me to understand. I am God, Advaita will say you are God, but you can also have a God. Because I don't feel like God, no. I know I'm God, but I don't feel like it, so it's better to have a God. Bhakti is of many kinds. We all love things in the world. We love our family, friends, children. But this is special kind of love. God. Why? Because our love changes, no, for ordinary things in the world. So many times, friends fall apart, families fall apart, parents can be disillusioned with their children, children can be disillusioned with their parents. Any ideal that we find in the world, be it the leaders we adore, the ideologies we adore, they are all fraught with change. What might be good one day might not be good another day. So that kind of love is transient. But then we have created an entity called God. And we've endowed with all kinds of supreme qualities like omnipotent, omniscient, all merciful, all loving, all no, whatever, right? Because we human need a psychological support. And we've said God is one thing that will always, not fail. Although a lot of times we always say, there's always this thing that God has failed me, God has failed me, I'm such a bhakta. Now, there's story of Prahlad and there's story of Draupadi in Mahabharata when they cry for God and God comes. But then God doesn't come for me. My Swami says that's because we've given God a job. Look after me. But that is not real bhakti. Real bhakti is whatever God gives, That's prasad for me, good or bad. It's not God for me, my Swami says, but me for God. That is a big change in our attitude. Instead of saying, I will go and do this for God because God, then you give me this, that is a trap. Then God will fail us. What does He have to do with you scoring good marks in exam? Has He solved all the other problems in life before He worries about that? But then when we say, okay, whatever happens, it's His will, then if something bad will happen, we can be more able to deal with it. Even this will pass. Bolo?
Yeah, I just want to reinforce this point that it is actually this external act, right, of going to the temple and the worship. Today is this day in Ekadashi, and I was like really surprised. There were lines and lines of people outside Venkateshwara temple, right? So, what actually it is divine surrender. When I went to ask for something, it was divine surrender. The second thing I wanted to say is that it's an opinion. I want to acknowledge that, but to me, bhakti feels like less external, or maybe the ritual is external, but it is really connected to the light, the little, the last doll you have there within. And the more I do this outside, it's more taking me within, right? So, the God and God, all that external is really this, right? So it brings me back to this, and actually, the feeling that it exists in me, that little dog, Brahman.
You are 100% right, Harpreet. The bhakti model of Gita has nothing to do with what we do outside, ringing the bells in the temple. It is all to do with our inner attitude, to remembrance, to surrender, to devotion. And bhakti is of many kinds, no? Like there is like it doesn't necessarily have to be the temple bhakti, no? Getting up in the morning, lighting a little lamp is bhakti. Don't have to show it to anyone else. In fact, better not to show it to anyone else. That corrupts the whole motive a little bit. So bhakti is a purely personal practice, the Gita's version of bhakti. And the idea is, as I was saying earlier, why bhakti? It is to make our ego smaller. Again, I keep coming back to ego again. Ego came as doership here. In the doing person, we said, drop that sense of doership, lessen that ego. Here, we are saying that we are subordinating our ego to something big. So, we become smaller. Now we'll talk about what Harpreet had asked, path of philosophy and path of bhakti, no? But I'll pause here if for any reflections.
Reminds me of that movie PK, where the Bhakti and all, like he says, which God are you praying? Are you praying the God that you created, the one you are protecting, or you praying to the God that created us? So I think a lot of times in India or anywhere else we see that pray to the god that they have created, like the statue, the rituals that they have created. But when you say that Gita has carved the path of honoring the Brahma within ourselves.
Not Brahma, Brahman.
Brahman.
This is Brahma.
Okay. Brahman. So
4 words that are often misunderstood: Brahman, Brahma, Brahmin, the caste system wala Brahmin, and the 4th one is Brahmanas, which is a section in Vedas. So our words are like a little bit, but let's stay with you. Yes, Brahman.
the Gita part है, we have to honor the Brahman within us. So when you are saying that when we light the diya, again, is it not outward? Like,
It's outward, but for your own sake only, no? You're lighting, that's your prayer, no? For your own sake and for doing the worship, no? But a lot of times people will go to a temple and say, you know what, I will sponsor 50 kilograms of laddus today, and this diya will be lit in the memory of my family. That is not bhakti. That is ostentation for show, Krishna will say.
Shruti, I just want to answer that lighting the diya. I've also, I didn't grow up in a very ritualistic thing, but now I love little rituals because lighting the diya to me was only like the act of discipline and focus, right? An act of beauty, actually, just honoring that self, the consciousness within. So I just wanted to say that even flowers, right? It's also external now, but that act of beauty is just is to me that act of God for myself in some ways or my setting. Just wanted to point it out.
What about someone who struggles with surrender or atheist? Faith and surrender is very important in this case. So they can still reach that stage.
We'll come to faith in a bit. We're actually, that's the almost the next thing we'll do. But let's just talk about atheism and faith. See, in the modern world, no, last 100 years or so, we have also created religions. We call them capitalism, communism, socialism. They're all belief systems only. Every ideal that we hold on to in life, like atheists will say, oh, your God is not true. I believe in the God of capitalism. In America, this idea of individual liberty and freedom is another idea. But if we were to really inquire honestly, everything that we believe in this world is based on some worldview or a faith. In fact, not believing in God is also an act of faith. And a good way to see where these modern ideologies are failing is how much division they have created. I mean, accepted religion has also created divisions over thousands of years. But we are talking about different kind of religion here. Advaita. Oneness. Politics is a religion nowadays. People have faith. My side versus the other side. So faith, without faith we do not exist. We may not. Faith is not a term to be used only in the narrow sense of bhakti. Without faith, like my Swami says, even if you have to go to college, you have to have the faith that the degree will get you a job or that they will teach you something nice over there. Right? We'll come to faith very quickly, shortly. So, this is the question that Krishna then asks, Arjuna asks. So, remember we said there are two kinds of gods in Hinduism. One is the God with form. This one. In Vedanta, Sagun Brahman. Beyond that is the formless God. Nirgun Brahman. Nirgun means without attributes. Brahman without any attributes. This is Brahman with attributes. Form of Brahman is Krishna.
Just now said that's Brahma.
Brahman.
That is Brahman, the smaller version.
That's Atman. Atman, Brahman. I'll send you that video, I forgot.
Jivatma and Paramatma.
This is Jivatma and this is Paramatma. And they're the same only, but in an individualized sense, this is what Jiva Atma is, this is Paramatma. So Arjuna asks, which is better, the worship of the formless God or the God with form? And Krishna says, Arjuna asks Krishna, the Bhakt who worships you with love at all times, this one, and who worships the imperishable, unmanifested, this one, of these two, which one is a higher yogi? Krishna says, they are the best among yogis who with deepest faith and deep love worship me at all times. This one here. Very humble. But then he says, but the path is full of agony who attach their mind to the unmanifested. Formless worship is an arduous path for the embodied to take. Very famous verses, chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga starts with this verse, these two verses. Apparently dichotomy, isn't it? Should I worship God with form or God without form? He said, no, this is better for vast majority of people. Because we need a form to attach our mind to. Otherwise, what do I sit around and think about what? Beyond space, beyond time, beyond karma. Okay, what is it? Imperishable, eternal. Hard, no? So, philosopher people go there. The lovers go here. And he says the path of love is actually easier. And the path of philosopher is full of agony. So you choose. So this is better, he says. Now we come to faith. I call this faith, form and fate. Faith is what we believe in. Form is what we seek, in what form that we seek that faith in. Fate is the seeking what we become. So we chase role models, whether we like it or not, in the world subconsciously. Money could be another faith we might have. Some role models on YouTube we might chase. Some role models in cricket and in Bollywood we might chase. The more faith we have in those role models, that's what we'll seek and that we will become. So faith and fate are causally linked. So we get to choose what kind of things we need to have faith in. And Gita is unequivocal. He says, come to me. Everything is transient. Krishna says, there's a whole chapter, chapter 17, just dedicated on faith. So it's an important topic. Towards the end, faith comes in. The Shraddha Traya Vibhag Yoga, threefold nature of faith. Krishna says, Arjun, everyone's faith is the purity of their mind. Faith is a mark of a man, as is their faith, so are they. Just like in mind, he said, mind can be friend or enemy. For faith, he says, it is a mark of a man. What ideals we chase, that is our faith. Swami Vivekananda says, a man first needs to have a faith in himself or herself. Before we turn our faith into God, first we have to have faith in ourselves. And Krishna says faith is of three types, Satvik, Rajasic and Tamasic. Here also, if now we are in the bottom half of this experiencing person's wheel, this one here. So there are three kinds of faith, Satvik, Rajasic and Tamasic. He says Satvik worship the gods, the Rajasic worship the ancestors and the yakshas because they want rebirth again and again. And Tamasic, they worship ghosts and spirits. Three kind of faith. Not my language, his language.
That spirit statement, I get reminded of Kantara movie.
Then Arjun also because he is a very questioning person, curious person, he has a question on faith. He says, I know faith is important, but if I don't practice, what happens? We won't go into those verses, but that's in chapter 6 towards the end. He says, have faith, do your best, next life you will be born in better families, and then you'll pick up again. Finally, we come to Bhakti Yoga, what I call the technology of love. We'll quickly run through these in the interest of time. First element of Bhakti Yoga is remembrance, remembering God at all times. Second is devotion. These are all in the notes I circulated. Very famous verse from which we have taken inspiration for this visual. He says, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, whatever my devotee offers, that immersed in love, I accept from the sincere seeker. That's devotion. Whatever you give with love. Then he says faith. He says, who see me everywhere and in me, who see everyone, they are not lost to me and I do not lose them. And also on faith, he says, for those always deeply in love, I carry the duty to provide and to protect. Yoga Shem Vahamyam. That is LIC's motto. If you've seen Yoga Shem Vahamyam, they've taken it from Gita. Finally, Krishna says, love for all is how genuinely bhakti will show. And he says, me present in all beings who worship in oneness, that yogi lives in me. We'll end with these three verses, which are very, very important, right towards the end of Gita when Krishna is wrapping up. When he has to make sure Arjuna is understanding the highlights. He says, for faith, he says, go to his home with all your faith, Arjun. Grace, by his grace, you will find the highest place of eternal peace. Very famous verses these are. Then he says, absorb the mind in me, love me, worship me, bow to me. You will find me surely, for you are dear to me. A very beautiful dynamic that plays between Krishna and Arjun throughout the text. As a student teacher, and how the teacher actually cares for the student. Finally, he says, put aside all, and then he's saying, Bhakti is the way to go. He says, put aside all your dharmas, seek only my home. I will free you from all your sins, do not grieve. And then the ones that we won't have time to go on will basically be these set of verses in chapter 12, which are very famous. The ideal bhakta. Shruti, you're asking 26 qualities, no? Some of the qualities will be here in this ideal bhakta. So maybe that is something that just go through them. We find time and we'll go discuss them. But the same things he will repeat back in 16 chapter also. What is he looking for in ideal person? What is this person like? What would he want this person to be like? To be enlightened? What are the qualities needed? From a bhakti perspective, he will list down these 6, 7, 8 verses, which is the last page of what I handed out today. So that was really running through Dhyana and Bhakti today, because we want to finish by Friday. Tomorrow we will do this. Very important. So yesterday we did this, doing person, Karma Yoga. Today we did the experiencing person, Dhyana and Bhakti Yoga. And tomorrow we will do the soul person, karmic bondage and jnana and samskaras and all that happy stuff. So I'll quickly end with a prayer, and then if there are any questions we can take them up. If not, we can. See, I told you the first few sessions will be hard, after that it will become easier. Ultimately, it all is in the service of lowering the ego. Psychology of Gita is all lowering the ego. I am nothing, I do nothing. Very unconventional approach in the world out there, where they're asking you to make your ego bigger. I am the center of the universe. All unhappiness, Krishna will say, comes from that. Okay, let's do the prayer. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu. The last one I just muttered to myself. Band?